One of the many pictures posted online by Pastor Bubba Copeland, who is also the mayor of Smith Station, dressed in ladies' clothing, and the article also includes pictures of him wearing women's underwear. Copeland reportedly posted the pictures on social media sites, Instagram and Reddit. AlabamaBaptist.org released the following statement, quote, "We have become aware of the alleged unbiblical behavior related to the pastor of the First Baptist Church of Phoenix City. We are praying for the leaders of the church family as they seek to determine the truth concerning these accusations," unquote. The pictures came to light when an article was posted by 1819.com. Reporter Craig Monger spoke to me via Zoom, explaining how the conversation between he and the mayor went. He says all quotes in his article are true, with the full recorded conversation as proof.
I can tell you this. For exactly reasons such as this, and because I live in the great state of Alabama, I record all of my phone conversations that I have for like I said, reasons just such as this.
Hey folks, Dale Jackson here for Yellowhammer Now. Let's talk about Alabama's journalists and how they are generally against journalism. Let's go back to the story from 1819 News about Bubba Copeland. That story ended, unfortunately, in the suicide of Bubba Copeland because he was being exposed. And I've talked to people from 1819 News on the record, and it's very clear that they were still investigating that story when this tragedy took place. Bubba Copeland didn't kill himself because of what was exposed. He killed himself because of what he feared being exposed. That seems pretty clear to me, but because I don't have any evidence that, I'm going to tell you that that is my opinion from talking to people involved in the story. I'm telling you that's my opinion because, although I do call myself Alabama's most trusted journalist, that's only tongue-in-cheek because Alabama's journalists are generally jokes, and I'm about to tell you that right now. Now, they didn't like the reporting of the Bubba Copeland story. Why didn't they like the reporting of the Bubba Copeland story? Well, they didn't like the reporting of that because it was an LGBTQ story, and if they said anything bad about him, they would be saying it bad about the entire LGBTQ community. That's why whenever there is deviancy in that community and insistence that drag queens read at story hours or go to schools or have brunches in front of kids or whatever, we have to pretend that it's normal. Because if we don't, that's calling all LGBTQ people deviants. I disagree with that logic. I think it's just the people that insist on reading books to children, well, in full makeup and drag. But hey, what do I know? What do I know? I'm just a right-wing bomb thrower who deserves to rot in hell. Yeah, that's coming my way. But that's okay to do. Just keep that in mind. That's all right to do. But let's go back to the original story here. For just a second. Our friends in the media, journalists against journalism, have declared that people need to disaffiliate themselves from 1819 News. They made the argument that they basically murdered Bubba Copeland. Now, what I find most troubling about this, and this is all back because this morning, or yesterday morning, Jeremy Gray of aldotcom decided he wanted to share a story from Variety. Now, that wasn't enough for the managing producer of something at AL.com to do. They had to then write a total story about that other story, still blaming 1819 News for it. And then you watch as other members of the media, including people that work at AL.com, stumbled and bumbled their way around the story, trying to figure out ways to rationalize it. Now, the smartest thing to do was to do like most people have done, and that is lay low on this because they're frauds. But keep in mind, the main story here is they didn't want this story covered. But let me tell you what a joke that is. Because all we have to do is look at the recent history of Alabama's media, and we can tell that they don't really believe the things they're saying. This is just unique to Bubba Copeland. Like, I'll give you an example with the Bubba Copeland stuff. You have a crime reporter at a TV station in the area Bubba Copeland lives, and they're lamenting the fact that they exposed Bubba Copeland and then they just kept hurting him. And by hurting him, they mean exposing him. And that's what was happening, and that's why he killed himself. But this crime reporter has no interest in going a step deeper. Instead, it's demonizing other people for doing the job she should have done as a local reporter. Then you have the hypocrisy of all of this. Guys like William Thornton writing this story, covering the Variety thing, and talking about how bad it is that a conservative website did this. But what about AL.com and their history? Well, I can give you some of it. Remember John Merrill, the former Secretary of State? What did he do? Well, he had an affair, apparently. It was a private affair. It was all secretive. Didn't involve any state resources or anything like that. They love that story. Wonder why. And then you had the story of Roy Moore, who Kyle Whitmire, one of the stars at AL.com. Now, again, it's a star amongst piles of dog. So just think about what it is to be a star at AL.com. That's Kyle Whitmire. And he went, and because he was mad at Roy Moore, decided to suggest that maybe Roy Moore was gay. Yes, the smear was Roy Moore might be gay. And therefore, it's okay to give him a hard time because doth protest too much. He might be queer after all. And that's what Kyle Whitmire did. Any apology for that? Did they ever put a poll on it? Was he ever held accountable for it? He was held accountable for it by one guy, me, on CNN.
Has not come on my radio show in months, and I don't expect him to get him on the show before this election takes place or afterwards. I've been very unfriendly to Roy Moore for years here. And the real question about this is why the people don't believe what the media is saying. And the reason is simple. Lots of retractions. Donald Trump, a pathological liar, has weaponized the term fake news. And your guy sitting right there, Kyle Whitmire, years ago, wrote a piece asking if Roy Moore was gay. Why in the world would anybody listen to the stuff that's coming out of those outlets? That's the real problem here.
Kyle? Look, these allegations are, they're credible. And yes, Dale's right about the piece I wrote years ago. The question was whether this was following a narrative that we've seen over and over and over again with his vitriol toward the LGBTQ community.
And to further show you these piles of dog at AL.com, let's look at one of their Reckon reporters on the environment. What did he do? Well, he suggested today that because I had a problem with this, that I myself might be gay. See, you see how it works? It's okay for them to try to smear you as gay if you're concerned about these issues. It's very interesting. Now, let me ask you a question. Should those two gentlemen still be employed at AL.com? If they're willing to do that kind of stuff to people who they disagree with, calling them gay as an insult, well, people who view gay as an insult might criticize Bubba Copeland, who might kill himself. Wow, that maybe Kyle Whitmire and this Reckon reporter are responsible for Bubba Copeland's death after all. No, of course, that's silly. They're only responsible for their horrible actions. They're just mad that somebody covered an actual story in the state. And if you wonder why the state of journalism is what it is in Alabama, the mainstream journalism, why AL.com is wildly irrelevant, even though they have a pretty large reader base, it's because of stuff like this. They're so easily maligned because of their behavior and their bias in their straight reporting and obviously in their opinion reporting as well, that they just don't matter. You can try to tell me they do, but ask yourself this question. When's the last time AL.com did something that actually mattered? I mean, that wasn't about the depth chart of Alabama or something like that. When was the last time that happened? I can't think of one. I really can't. Now, if you want to go through my resume, I can point to multiple things that I've had direct impact on in the Alabama legislature. When's the last time they can say they did that? Yeah? They may get Pulitzer Prizes for rewriting editorials from the Washington Post, and that's very, very impressive. But the reality is they hate you, they hate the state, and they hate themselves. And at least on that last one, pretty much the entire state agrees. They hate themselves, we hate them, and it seems like that is going to be the relationship we're going to have with the mainstream media moving forward. And let's just be clear, they deserve it.